My name is Jeremy Hartzell. I teach junior high and high school humanities courses at Thales Academy in Wilsville, North Carolina. And Thales Academy has a relationship with Franklin Academy, which is set up the iPad conference. We're kind of the private school that is associated there. A little bit about me. I've taught a lot of, I kind of came into school when our highest grade was 7th grade. And so now that grade is the 11th grade, and I've taught a wide range of subjects because of the way our curriculum has developed. And so taught a lot of literature, a lot of history, logic, creative writing, rhetoric and composition, U.S. Constitution course. Taught a lot of different things, and I've used rap and hip-hop and music and poetry in all of those courses. That being said, the title of this talk is Rapping Across the Curriculum, so I do want to give some attention to STEM courses because I have the great fortune of being married to a biology teacher. And so a lot of times I kind of coordinate with her things that I try out in my humanities courses. I talk about helping her to adapt in her courses and vice versa, because I think there's a lot to be gained in having a multidisciplinary approach. Hopefully you downloaded that app. If you don't like it at the end of the talk, you can just delete it. It's fine. But go ahead, and I'm just going to kind of, at first, largely I'm going to talk about why I do this and kind of what my philosophy about it is and why it works, I feel, in my classroom, maybe how it can work in yours. And then I just like to walk you through some of the various technologies that I've used, whether they're on the iPad or they're some things that are on the computer, because as you're finding out, teaching with the iPad, not everything works on the iPad, particularly anything that is Flash-based. And there's no perfect app for whatever it is you want to do. There's just nothing that does it all. So I'll kind of talk about how I kind of hodgepodge put together a lot of different stuff. Just my title, I've already said that. Okay, so first of all, why I do this, why I use it, kind of my philosophy behind it. Well, the number one thing is that I really like it. You may not be able to tell it by looking at me, but I'm a huge fan of rap. I grew up with it, I really enjoy it, and it appeals to me, and sometimes it surprises the kids when you listen to the same things that they do. Even though what I would say is not a lot of what they listen to today is necessarily really good. But that's just me being biased. But the thing is that they're already listening to this music. And whether you want to think of this in the frame of reference of rap and hip-hop or any other kind of music or even just spoken word, it'll work across the board. But they're already listening to the music, and rap and hip-hop in particular is a lot more mainstream now than when I was a kid. If you listen to like Top 40 radio, I mean, Taylor Swift is now even rapping parts of her songs, which if she can do it, so can my students. So they're already listening, and my frame of mind is that I just want to exploit whatever they're interested in, whatever they care about. I want to take advantage of that and bring it into the classroom. And it becomes fun, and in the process of doing it, in the process of writing things out and expressing the content in just a different form, they're having fun with it, but they don't quite realize that they're learning. And so anytime you can secretly teach them, it's kind of like hiding vegetables in their dessert. I like bringing in competition into the classroom too, and so in addition to having them write raps, I also host rap battles throughout the quarter of the semester. And I'll provide you with a link that you can create like a bracketed system to have like a single elimination tournament over the course of a semester, and I'll talk about some things that I've done with that. But my main feeling is that it promotes purposeful self-expression, so taking things that they can do and just pointing them in the direction of the content. Whether I have used it in my history courses, for American history I did an elimination tournament throughout an entire semester where each student had to pick a historical figure from colonial America, and they had to rap as that person in first person against someone else. And they knew who they were going to rap against, so then they also had to include verses where they were actually like making fun of that person in a totally classroom appropriate way. But that can be a helpful way to learn that, and it's also meaningful. But the great thing is, when I first started doing that, I did not have the iPad. And as the iPad has become a part of the classroom, and Thales, like Franklin, is a 1-to-1 iPad ratio for our high school students, which is amazing, but also a lot of times really difficult to deal with. I'd almost many times rather they didn't have an iPad at all unless I handed it to them for the time that I wanted them to use it. And I'm also imagining that most of you here are not coming from schools that are 1-to-1 ratios, and that you may have a laptop or an iPad cart, or you may have a limited amount of time, or maybe you have the iPad and there's just a few in the classroom, or just you and there's no iPads in the classroom. And so I want to talk about the different ways you can use it based on just how much iPad usage you have. But the nice thing is that it's an all-in-one tool, depending on what app you use. So I want to show you this quick video. It's about 7 minutes long. This is a TED Talk with the speaker, Chris Emden, who's a university professor, who has, what I'm talking about here today is nothing original. Many of you probably toyed with this in your own classrooms. You know other people that are doing it. I'm not standing here like, I've invented rapid classroom. I don't feel that way at all. If anything, I'm inspired by this guy here, and I want you to listen to him speak first. Hopefully this is
Right now, there is an aspiring teacher who is working on a 60-page paper based on some age-old education theory developed by some dead education professor, wondering to herself what this task that she's engaging in has to do with what she wants to do with her life, which is be an educator, change lives, and spark magic. Right now, there is an aspiring teacher in a graduate school of education who's watching a professor babble on and on about engagement in the most disengaging way possible. Right now, there's a first-year teacher at home who is pouring through lesson plans, trying to make sense of standards, who's trying to make sense of how to grade students appropriately, while at the same time saying to herself over and over again, don't smile till November, because that's what she was taught in her teacher education program. Right now, there is a student who is coming up with a way to convince his mom or dad that he's very, very sick and can't make it to school tomorrow. On the other hand, right now, there are amazing educators that are sharing information that's shared in such a beautiful way that the students are sitting at the edge of their seats just waiting for a bead of sweat to drop off the face of this person so they can soak up all that knowledge. Right now, there is also a person who has an entire audience wrapped with attention. A person that's weaving a powerful narrative about a world that the people who are listening have never imagined or seen before. But if they close their eyes tightly enough, they can envision that world because the storytelling is so compelling. Right now, there's a person who can tell an audience to put their hands up in the air, and they will stay there until he says put them down. Right now. So people will then say, well, Chris, you described a guy who's going through some awful training, but you're also describing these powerful educators. If you're thinking about the world of education, or urban education in particular, these guys will probably cancel each other out, and then we'll be okay. The reality is, the folks I described as the master teachers, the master narrative builders, the master storytellers, are far removed from classrooms. The folks who know the skills about how to teach and engage an audience don't even know what teacher certification means. They may not even have the degrees to be able to have anything to call an education. And that, to me, is sad. It's sad because the people who I described that were very disinterested in the learning process want to be effective teachers, but they have no models. I'm going to paraphrase Mark Twain. Mark Twain says that proper preparation or teaching is so powerful that it can turn bad morals to good. It can turn awful practices into powerful ones. It can change men and transform them into angels. The folks who I described earlier got proper preparation in teaching, not in any college or university, but by virtue of just being in the same spaces of those who engage. Guess what those places are? Barbershops, rap concerts, and most importantly, in the black church. And I've been framing this idea called Pentecostal pedagogy. Who here has been to a black church? We got a couple of hands. If you go to a black church, that preacher starts off and he realizes that he has to engage the audience. So he starts off with this little wordplay in the beginning oftentimes. And then he takes a pause and he says, oh my gosh, they're not quite paying attention. So he says, can I get an amen? So can I get an amen? And all of a sudden everybody's be awoken. That preacher bangs on the pulpit for attention. He drops his voice at a very, very low volume when he wants people to key into him. And those things are the skills that we need for the most engaging teachers. So why does teacher education only give you theory and tell you about standards and tell you about all these things that have nothing to do with the basic skills, that magic that you need to engage an audience, to engage a student? So I make the argument that we reframe teacher education. That we could focus on content, and that's fine. And we could focus on theories, and that's fine. But content and theories with the absence of the magic of teaching and learning means nothing. Now, people oftentimes say, well, magic is just magic. You know, there are teachers who, despite all their challenges, who have those skills, get into those schools, and they're able to engage an audience. And the administrator walks by and says, wow, he's so good. I wish all my teachers could be that good. And when they try to describe what that is, they just say he has that magic. But I'm here to tell you that magic can be taught. Magic can be taught. Magic can be taught. Now, how do you teach it? You teach it by allowing people to go into those spaces where the magic is happening. If you want to be an aspiring teacher in urban education, you got to leave the confines of that university and go into the hood. You got to go in there and hang out at the barbershop. You got to attend that black church. And you got to view those folks that have the power to engage and just take notes on what they do. In our teacher education classes in my university, I started a project where every single student that comes in there sits and watches rap concerts. They watch the way that the rappers move and talk with their hands. They study the way that he walks proudly across that stage. They listen to his metaphors and analogies, and they start learning these little things that if they practice enough, becomes the key to magic. They learn that if you just stare at a student and raise your eyebrow about 1/4 of an inch, you don't have to say a word because they know that that means that you want more. And if we could transform teacher education to focus on teaching teachers how to create that magic, then we can make dead classes come alive. We can reignite imaginations, and we can change education. Thank you.
So obviously, what this is kind of doing, if you take in full his approach and his philosophy, that it isn't just about putting the technology in the hands of the students and saying, okay, I've done my part. But on the other side of that, you have to be there as a facilitator. And you have to be willing to understand how the technology works yourself. And you have to be willing to put yourself out there, even if that means making a fool of yourself, humiliating yourself. They will appreciate that. And so you have probably already learned that. So I really believe that everything that he's saying, and that when I go to teach, and the iPad has just become a further tool of this, that I establish a persona for myself. Who I am as a teacher isn't fully necessarily who I am in my personal life, because I'm a lot more confident as a teacher than I am in other circumstances, because I know I have to be to communicate with them, to have their attention. And so I also know that I'm going to always have to do things that I'm not necessarily uncomfortable with, but that also I'm not 100% confident about. Because I would never have them do things like that if I'm not willing to do it myself. And when you ask students, when you ask an 8th grader to stand up in front of the room and rap, you have students who are like, yes, let me do that, and then you have students who are like, not a chance. And so how do you encourage that, and how do you facilitate that? And part of it is by modeling it. So a couple of things I'm going to show you here. The first is just to kind of see a really brief sample that I had my students do just this last week. These are 11th graders in a medieval history course, and I just had to make a quick rap using the most basic technology that we have, just using GarageBand and Audacity on the computer, which you can also use GarageBand on the iPad. I said, make me a quick rap about whatever you guys want to decide about, and they decided to do Charlemagne. And you will hear that their skill levels vary.
Listen up, everybody. I'm gonna tell you about a man. To unite the Frankish kingdoms was his bold plan. He had a big empire that reached from France to Spain. All his deeds made him known as King Charlemagne. Charles was the son of Pippin the Short, the first Carolingian king of the court. He also had a brother named Carloman, who might have been plotting to take his throne. Then Carloman was killed, and no one knows by whom. But some people think Charles brought him to his doom.
Charlemagne was said to be a big old man, and of hearing people speak he was a big old fan. He just couldn't write, though he tried so hard. At least that's what's recorded by a man named Dionhard. His house was a great big palace of sorts. In his day, he easily had the best of forts. He didn't listen to Christians because they were lame. He suffered many health problems. What a shame.
Charlemagne just could not rest. What he had to do now was be the best. So he gathered his armies and went to war and united all the kingdoms, which was much more than 4. In fact, he had gathered 36 kingdoms. From them the Lombards, they were under his dominion. After that, he ruled the land with compassion because he had a lot of passion.
So as Charlemagne was increasing his empire, he thought he should divide it before he expired. He amassed too big a kingdom for it to go to waste. So he gave the kingdom to his sons, a rash decision made in haste. Louis, Luther, Charles, they all got their parts, even though best intent was not at their hearts. The empire went downhill from there. A united rule never again would it bear. Word.
Okay. No. So you can see there are varying degrees of skill level, but ultimately what it's about is taking a massive amount of information. So you heard the second student who rapped mention a biography written by Einhard, who was a German hagiographer in the 10th century. And we looked at, and everything that they're doing is from that primary source text. So it's not like they went on Wikipedia and just found some facts. I handed them the original translation biography of Charlemagne written by this monk, and I said, you read it, you pull out the facts that you think are relevant, and then they decided what went into the rap. And so ultimately the rap, even though it's just a couple minutes long, and of each of the 4 students, they wrote like 6 or 7 verses, they had to distill a lot of information to decide what goes into that. And the bottom line, whether or not the rap is any good, the process of creating that rap is what's at stake, which is they have to read, understand, comprehend, and master, and then present that information. And so at the end of the day, I'm not going to say, it didn't rhyme, you get an F. I'm going to say, okay, what facts did they present? Did they have an overall understanding of the concept and the themes, a particular pattern of history that is present? Whatever I'm asking for in that class, are they presenting me with that information? And again, that's something that they did just with a week's notice. I basically said, look, I'm going to a conference and I need something. Give me something to bring there. And they said, okay. And so, and we were focusing on other things during that week. And so they were able to do that in a quick amount of time, basically because I have them trained to do that now. And that's what it takes. They're not going to be comfortable with it the first time they do it. And I've taught these students for many years, and at first they were very, very reluctant, but now they'll do anything I ask them to do. This next little bit, this is, again, from the TED Talk. If any of you are familiar with, anyone familiar with the Wu-Tang Clan? Okay, so Jizza from the Wu-Tang Clan worked with Chris Emdin, the speaker you previously saw, to bring a program into city schools also partnering with a corporation called Rap Genius. And what they did is they created Jizza in particular. I won't show you the whole lecture because he talks for 17 minutes, and it's a very interesting talk. And I do have I have a Weebly site I'll give you at the end of the talk with all the materials that I give to you. But you can watch the whole talk and see Jizza speak about science and education and his experience with education. And it's very interesting and very enlightening. But what I want to show you is he helped launch a program in these schools. And what you're going to see here is the end result where there's going to be 4 finalists. So these are students that wrote raps about scientific processes or concepts. And this is kind of the best of the best. And these are students that are probably not in highly achieving schools, but who also had a lot longer to work with. And they also had the direct guidance of working with a member of the Wu-Tang Clan, which I am not. So. Sorry. Okay, I'll just let it go. Okay, here's Pearl.
We have some of the Rap Genius finalists now tonight in the runner, so I would like to introduce them, bring them on stage. Alicia Duncan, Brian Rivera, Victoria Richardson, and Jabari Johnson.
Why you want to be mad at me like 9.803 pushing down at me? Meters per second spin, acceleration, I'm pushing back up, you know that's called determination. Gravity wanted to battle, said he had forces. Of course I took the battle, I had to show him who the boss is. I have to show you what the 3 Newton's laws is. Move when I stand, I tell the forces on it. Newton from gravity wanted apple fell from a tree. The battle's up, this is not so much your history. Give me a minute, then describe the television. It's already in the opposite, this shit it's motion. Gotta give it time. Second minutes, hours. Let me break it down. Stronger than Oscar Powers. Gravity got nothing on me or my force. You know we from broken, so we hold it down because of the hypothesis. In education, no guess. Who winning this rap with it? Y'all know who is the best. At the end of the day, going back to a test. For my hypothesis is nothing but correct. Gravity. Why you wanna be mad at me like 9.803 pushing down and meters per second spin. Acceleration. I'm pushing back up. You know that's called determination. Gravity. Are you still mad at me? You know Newton's second law. I told you that you can't handle me. Your actions are holding me down. All battling with the consequences of multiple energies. But you know we got chemistry. You know what I mean? We're the wire. So just energy, right? Can you stop pushing down at me so gravity? Why you want to be mad at me? Like 9.803 pushing down at me. Meters per second spin. Acceleration. I'm pushing back up. You know that's called determination.
Alright, yo. Now when a man and a woman get nothing but a soul, and the sperm have a journey to try to reach the ovum, but it enters the cervix and the sperm start running. That's when the function starts in sexual reproduction. Now when the function of man produces testosterone, which is a hormone that people produce, estrogen and progesterone. And when the sperm finally reaches the ovum, the journey's over, it becomes a zygote and waits till it's 9 months older. As it waits in the placenta, it begins to grow a nose, toes. But be careful, ketosis will ruin the growth. Because positive energy activates constant elevation. Yo, say it with me. Positive energy activates constant elevation. Peace.
I got something I want to spit acapella. I'm rap Cinderella. I'm rap's recreation. So the DJ put that beat on probation. I must be some type of mutation. Cause I developed the trait that made me the best in the nation. These fake rappers claiming they gon' kill, but I'm immune by adaptation. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. Just remember Mother Nature screaming, anybody can get it. I'm the reproduction of a trait chosen to persist, you can't resist. A flow that you crave is like this. I'm not even a rapper, but I'm killing these uncamouflaged writers. My words may annihilate because of your extinction. I'm the greatest. This is a topic that's been debated and contemplated. If you ain't got a trait, you need to join the extincted. Only the best of the best are the ones that alive. You ain't meant to survive. If you can't set fire to the rain, you won't see another day. If you got short legs, tell me how you expect to run. Be in the prey. I'm a beast. I'm emerging from her cave, stepping out of her shell. Shine, this ain't a trait that mutates in this world. So the flow, change it up. Martin Tommy to the young know what's up. Mutation, the act changing the characteristics. I'm that purple apple who decided to be different. During came to a realization, each week had its own modification. He called this evolution, something every generation is doing. It's a music like the dream that I'm pursuing. By science and marketing. It's my passion, I might have to. Science rap out. My knowledge I've been on past like all this time. Done.
This concept is applied to all lives. We strive times distance, be a witness to the prize, be a man, understand you comprehending this is vital. Work equals FD, the equation for survival. Your only rival is friction, don't get caught up in the drag. You better prepare, because obstacles fight back. When you get knocked down, no, please don't cry. Just get up and apply more force next time. One day, I was dreaming with a really strong hope that I'll make it, but to make it takes what I just believe in. These resistance/demons were kind of holding me back. And I let them. But the simple way to get me on track was force times displace is work, no debate. I'll take that concept, apply it to my mistakes, and now I'm progressing, a natural rap genius. I'ma get an A if I see this on the region. And here's a lesson. I know it kind of hurts, but if you truly want to work, then there must be progression, because FD equals W's the rule, and the unit measurement for the product is called joules. Cool, I did the work. I'm gonna try to let it flow. The more people I know, kinetic energy grows. So I'm gonna go to work, convert all of my potential in. As my beat increases, then I'm gonna go exponential. No effect. My mass is what I'm bringing to the table, and the estimate. You wish that you had brought a bigger dinner plate. Separate me from the fakes. Let me educate. Velocity's my following, and that's what I'ma generate through these shows and gigs. Just overcoming all the friction to the point where friction doesn't even make a difference. I feed my interest with the laws of physics. Whenever V multiplies, the picture is painted vivid. The work was just something that got me inside the door. Now we growing the Phoenix exponentially more. I got a lot in store for the V's, because I'm progressing my M, and when you multiply them, there's no end to the cut. Kinetic energy, you better be prepared. Filling you up with envy with my 1F squared. Yo, here's the lesson. I know it kind of hurts, but if you truly want to work, then there must be progression, because FD equals W's the rule, and the unit measurement for the product is called joules. Cool, I did the work. I'm gonna try to let it flow. The more people I know, kinetic energy grows. So I'm gonna go to work, convert all of my potential, and as the speed increases, then I'm gonna go exponential.
And so you can see that's something that's more applied towards STEM courses. And thinking about how you can use rap to explain processes, theories, just complicated terms, and that's where it can really come to an advantage. And of course, in my humanities courses, it's largely about expressing understanding of character, plot, theme, historical patterns. And so a lot of times I'll have students in literature, they'll rap like the same way in history they were rapping as a historical figure. In literature, I have them rap either as a character or about a chapter. I teach a lot of, Thales is a classical curriculum, so I teach Homer and Virgil, and right now my 10th graders are working on kind of rewriting the Aeneid as a rap rather than an epic poem. That's our long-term project. That's kind of going to take an entire semester. All right. So the question is, it's great to do this, but how do you assess it? Okay? Well, there's no easy answer to that because it's not an end product. It's a means, it's a tool, it's a device, and how you use it in your classroom is entirely up to you. Again, I'll provide you with the Weebly site on which I put a very, very basic rubric. And the reason I keep it basic is because I do this in so many different classes, I'm constantly having to adapt that rubric, so it has to be flexible. And so you just put specifically whatever it is you want out of the rap. So if you want a certain number of facts, or if you want a specific process explained, you just incorporate that into a rubric. But the bottom line, that rubric has to be very, very specific and clear. So you can start out with something basic for your needs, but the student needs a lot more from you. And so they need to know, at the end of this, how much do I have to have written? What exactly are you looking for in it? Because otherwise they're just going to spend so much time trying to make themselves sound cool that they're not actually going to get the content in there. So the rubrics in the assignment sheet really has to ask for a lot of them and guide them through the process. Ultimately, you want to emphasize substance over style. Again, at the end of the day, I am not looking by the end of 5th period to create any Billboard charting rap stars. I just want students who have had a unique way to express themselves in the content they know. So when I grade these things, again, I'm looking for, did you give me what I asked for? Whether or not the rap is any good, that's something I can praise them for, but I would also praise them way more for, oh, you understood the content and you got that in to the lesson. But you can praise style and creativity because you're going to have a broad spectrum of students no matter what the class is. And so there are going to be students who can be really creative and do interesting things, but they're going to struggle more with getting the content in there. And sometimes they need more attention in the process, even though you can put a student in the corner and say, write a rap, and they just start writing a rap. Doesn't guarantee they're going to have anything in there that you're looking for. And so sometimes they need as much attention and they need as much encouragement and praise to get the content in. So you constantly have to be aware of the differentiated levels of your students with this additional wrinkle of now they're writing something very different. And you can again determine whether it's going to be a low stakes or a high stakes project. So again, sometimes I'll say, by the end of the period, give me 2 or 3 lines about this one thing. Or I'll say, like, over the course of a year, rewrite this entire novel as a rap, and that's a project. So there's really varying degrees of what you want to do with it, but ultimately it's something that's very, very flexible and very adaptable, and you have to determine what the need for it is in your classroom. Okay. So in conclusion, as far as like the overall philosophy, and then I'll walk you through some of the various technology, is again, be prepared for those different levels of engagement. I talk a lot about different skill levels. Engagement is a totally different thing. You're going to have students who think this is the greatest thing ever, and they're going to be so excited to do it, and then you're going to have very, very resistant students. And sometimes the resistant students will surprise you. The resistant students may be your top achievers, who just, I'm not getting up in front of the classroom, I'm not rapping, you can't make me do this. And the bottom line is, I wouldn't make them do it. And so if you can't have it be something that everybody is going to rise to the occasion for this, and so I use it as an opportunity for a life lesson that there are some things we're good at and some things that we're not. And if you're not comfortable standing up and delivering, at the very least I want something written from you. But there's also a lot of different apps and technology that allow the students kind of to hide anonymously. Whether they can change their voice, they can auto-tune, they can just talk right into the app and the app will turn it into a rap for them. There's a lot of different things that you can do that take the burden off the student having to, in their minds, have their entire lives ruined. And so it's just different degrees of what you're going to expect. So just being prepared for those different levels of engagement. Get out of the student's way a lot of times. You'll see certain students that just take to it, and the technology. Students in my classes have figured out a lot more about the apps than I have. I think I understand them and I say, here's how you do this, and no, this is a much better way. And they know a lot better than you about how to move files around and to get things where they want to go. Because again, there's no one app that really does it all. Some of them are far more complicated, some of them are simple, but they all have their complications, and I'll talk about some of those. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, so whether you want to introduce rap into your classroom, there's a lot of, again, people already out there doing it. Flocabulary.com is an excellent resource. Rhythm, Rhyme, and Results is an excellent resource. So there's a lot of different things out there that you can just go to and bring those things into your classroom. And you can also go on YouTube and just see, there's a lot of students out there producing things and seeing the different levels of what students are able to come up with. Some of them are really impressive, and some of them are like, oh God, how did the teacher let them publish that on YouTube? So there's really, really varying degrees. But also, again, kind of going back to what the speaker Crescendo says, to put yourself out there and to be willing to join in on the fun. All right. So if you want to write down the Weebly site, I'll pull it up in just a second. I put up a lot of materials. It's not very extensive because I have the problem that if I use something, I use a template and then I just change the template and I save that. And then I don't save the original draft. And so I've done this many, many times, but I usually only have like the most recent version. And so everything that I put up there is really specific towards my class and a classical curriculum. And so it may not like list all the standards that you need in your classroom, or it may not be on content that you need in your classroom, but they're all documents that you can just take and rewrite the reason I'm going to show them to you is because that I put them up to be there for your use, but that they also simply show you what I want to do. Okay? But ultimately, and we'll get to this in a second, I want to think about what you can do in your classroom. And so we'll talk about that in a second. I'd like to, this is a long enough session that we have plenty of time that you guys can talk and collaborate, maybe even do something by the end of the session. Okay? But that's the overall philosophy. So now, let's see some stuff you can actually use. Yeah. So on the Weebly site, I have an outline, the outline for this, which has a ton of links and app recommendations on it. Right here I have two assignments that I've made. One is for junior high level, which is really a lot more basic, but is specific in what I'm asking them for. And then I have one for a high school literature class where they were writing a rap from the Phaedo out of the Trial and Death of Socrates by Plato. It's a classical curriculum. And so they had to rap about Socrates dying, which is always fun. And then there's a really basic rubric, which again just has really general language in it that you can adapt specifically. And it just looks like any standard writing rubric. So I'm going to show you the one for the 7th grade classroom. The reason I use this one is because it gives the kids a lot of options. Sometimes I'll ask specifically, everyone is rapping about this. But in this case, we were doing, in 7th grade literature, we were right around the Tudor dynasty of kings and queens. And so I had the different topics very specific to that, and they were also doing this as a group effort. And I actually set this up that another history class was doing the same thing, and at the end of the quarter, those two classes were going to battle against each other. And I really regret that, because that was chaos. But notice I use really specific language in a bold print. Your group may then volunteer, because I'm not going to force anyone to the front of the room and ruin their 13-year-old social status. But ultimately, I'm looking for, at the very minimum, this 3 facts. I want specific things about dates, names, and geography, and having a particular point of view. But the hardest thing for these kids is actually writing the rap. So having rhythm, having phrasing, and things like that. So I always give them a sample. My stanzas, and this is something you can use, I keep it as simple as possible. So 8 to 12 syllables, A-B rhyme scheme, 2 lines of stanzas. So just rhyming couplets all the way down. And then I'll just change that for whatever the need is. So, and again, I am not a rapper, but so this is my rap. So this rap is about history, yo. You might find that a mystery, though. It's just a little introduction. Let me tell you about good Queen Bess, a tour de force in a rainbow dress. She feared no man and ruled the seas. I guess you could call her the Queen's Species. Okay? So I just give them the basic rhyme scheme. This is how long it's going to be. And then, because a lot of them I teach them for literature and history, I'm able to work on poetic devices in one class. And then in history, here's the content. But you might be teaching in a math course and you don't know what they're getting as far as their familiarity with metaphors and rhyme schemes and rhythm and things like that. And so it takes a lot of manipulation. But that's just a really basic assignment sheet that I use. All right, some of the online resources, and I have a lot of links posted on here that you can use. The big thing they're concerned about is rhyming. And I always tell them that rhyming to me really isn't important. Being on the beat really isn't important. It's the content that is important. But they're really concerned about rhyming, so there's a great online resource, rhymezone.com, which is an online rhyming dictionary, and you can see that I've been shopping on Amazon for a new bag. So, gotta love that data mining. Okay. So, the great thing about RhymeZone is that it doesn't give just perfect rhymes, it also gives you near rhymes, off rhymes, multisyllabic rhymes, a lot of things, and it's a really good resource. Okay? But then I always have a copy of a hard copy. Okay. So that's a great resource. Again, Flowcabulary. If you're looking for, you don't want to rap in your classroom, and you just want to show a video of a rap on a particular concept, Flowcabulary has a lot of great stuff. That's a really good one to go to. Vocaroo and Sherbet, and I put Sherbet up and I'll try in a second, but it was not responding today. Vocaroo and Sherbet are just online recording resources. So you just give in, the thing about Vocaroo is it works on the computer, but it's flash enabled, so it will not work on the iPad. Sherbet does, okay? But then Sherbet has issues of its own, of having to have an account and sort of things like that. But the great thing about Vocaroo is a student writes a rap, they don't want to perform it in front of the room. I just go to Vocaroo, I put the computer in front of them, I click record, they record it, I have a URL. That's it. And then I can create a QR code out of that, or they can email it to me. Whatever the case, then I just go online and you just hear a recording of them. And they don't even need a beat to do that. They just need their voice. So that's what's good about Vocaroo. And then the nice thing about Sherbet, hopefully it works. Yes. Okay. The nice thing about Sherbet is that Sherbet, you can upload audio as well. And the students can also create a QR code on Sherbet. So Sherbet will create the QR code for the website, and so they can send that to you. What I like to do, and the reason I like to use QR codes, is all the students who create raps, we may not necessarily have the time that everyone performs. I have them record it on their iPads, send me the URL, or send me a QR code. I print all of the QR codes, and I just tape them on the wall. And so then I have what I call a sound wall. And they just come to the back of the room, they use your QR reader, they scan it with their iPad, they listen. Okay? And so that's a really quick, convenient way to do that. So Sherbet's really good too. And all of this online stuff so far is free. Okay? CreateRaps.com is a really, really good one. Unfortunately, it does not work on the iPad because it's flash enabled. So I'm going over all the non-iPad stuff. Okay? The great thing about this one, it just has about 8 pages of free beats. So you pick the beat you want. And they're pretty good. And then they choose the beat they want, and then there's a built-in recorder on the website. So they can go, it'll ask me questions about my microphone, and it'll just record whatever you're doing. When you're done, stop, and then you can play it back. Yep, and then you can, I want to do that again. And then you can save it as an MP3. Okay, so it's all online, and then it has this nice feature where they can scratch the record a little bit. Okay, so and that's all online. That's all free, and it's got about 8 pages of beats. The number one thing you'll run into with letting them use this website is they will spend so much time just listening to the beats. And so what I often do is I say I will put them in groups, or I'll write down the names of beats and I'll put them in a hat and they just randomly select it. And that's their beat. And that eliminates the process of I've got to find the perfect one, let me listen all the way to the end. Because if they're using the basic structure and rhyme scheme I gave them, that works in just about any beat. You just have to slow down or speed up. And so that avoids the problem of they spend so much more time getting lost in the rabbit hole of the technology and not actually writing what you want them to write. Okay. So that's a great online resource. Okay. So that's pretty much it for non-iPad stuff, except for GarageBand is on the iPad, but a more extensive version of GarageBand is available for your desktop or your laptop Mac. And that's a really, really deep program that requires a certain level of sophistication. The one I like to use rather than GarageBand on the computer is Audacity. Where did Audacity disappear? So Audacity is just a simple recording tool, but it allows them to edit as well. So you just, again, sit them down at the computer, and the nice thing about this is they can record in different parts. So if you have more than one student in a group, you can send a student to the back of the room, they can put on headphones so you don't hear the beat, the only thing you'll hear them doing is saying their rap. Hook them up with a microphone, they record their part, they stop, student comes back, the next student goes back and does it. And so that way it eliminates a lot of the shenanigans of a bunch of kids around the computer deciding who goes first and who gets to control the keyboard. And so that's really good. And the nice thing is, you can just take an MP3 and drag it in, and then they can record right on top of it. And so there's a lot of websites that I've also put on the Weebly Core site that are just, again, free. I like free. So everything on there is free. You can pay for stuff, but the one I really like to use is worldhiphopbeats.com. It's got about 30 beats on there that, again, are all free to download, and they have given open source permissions for them, as long as if you publish it somewhere beyond the classroom, they just ask you to leave in this really annoying thing at the beginning that you'll hear on every one that they do. So tired of that voice. But yeah, they just record right on top of it, and it's really, really good. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far about anything on the computer that's not on the iPad yet? Okay. All right, so let's jump over to the iPad, because this is where the fun starts.
How about saving?
How about, like...
Because I'm thinking if they're working on it and don't complete, they can work at home.
Right. So, are you in a school where they have the iPad, or they...
We're just launching, so right now.
Okay. So yeah, what I do when I, like, because again, I teach junior high and high school. My high schoolers all have iPads, my junior high kids don't, which makes my day really frustrating sometimes. And so for my kids, paper and pen, they write it, and that they can turn it in handwritten. But as far as when they record, I just tell them we'll do that in class. I'll either set up a recording space in the back of the room if there's an empty classroom or empty hall space. I just send them out there. They do it. The nice thing about Audacity on the computer is it saves all the progress. So if they don't finish the recording, they can pick up where they left off. Some of the iPad apps, though, you've got to get it all done at once, which can be frustrating. And so that is a concern. So let me see. Must be it. Okay. I don't know if you guys have Apple TVs at your school, but it's the way you do. Okay. Okay. So some of the apps I like to use, the best one I really like, but it has a huge drawback, which I'll talk about in a second, which may discourage you from putting it out or pushing it out to all of your students on their individual iPads if they have an iPad. But if you're the one with the iPad or you have an iPad cart, it may be a little safer to use, and that's really up to your administration. But it's the one I asked you to download at the beginning, which I'll go over, which is Rap to Beats. And what I like about Rap to Beats is it's really all in one. There's, again, it's free, so then there's a ton of free beats on there. You just pick out the beat you want, and you record right on the app. When you're done, you save it, and you can email it to your teacher. And it'll be an MP3 when it arrives in your inbox. So that's a great way to do it. The one drawback about it, which I really don't like, and I wish there was a way around it, is you can see up here that you can record new. They have what the student has saved, but then you can listen to other people that are using the app. Which is to say that, and you can see from some of the titles, you know, like they have to use asterisks, and like you can listen to the first one and they'll drop like an F-bomb in 10 seconds. And so it's like, okay, I really don't want my students dealing with that. So that's the one major concern of this app, if you have it. And that's why I would never put it on my student's iPad. Because I can control my students in the classroom, I can't control other people. And a lot of the content on there I'm not super excited about. But the nice thing about it is they can record new. So they just pick one that they like. And they're all just, this one's fun because someone just took a Beatles song. So they pick out the beat that they want, again, or you assign it to them so they don't spend all day looking at it. You select it, and here's the neat part, is that on this page, you have to give it a title, And then in the settings, they can write the lyrics right in the app. Okay? So they go to lyrics, they type their lyrics in. So whatever they're working on, they're typing it right there. It's all in one place. They can also, if they're writing, like if they have their iPad and they're writing a notes or they wrote it in a Word document or a PDF, they can just copy and paste it into the app. And so the one huge drawback of the iPad is you can only have an app open at a time. And so if they're writing something and they want to go to this app, they have to close that and open that. This, they can take it with them, and they can just import or copy and paste their lyrics in, because they want to read something and they want to record at the same time. This allows them to read and record at the same time. So here's some lyrics I say that I wrote a rap about feudalism in 7th grade literature. So I load that in, I'm done. I go over here, I hit record, I go back to my lyrics, and I can just read as the music's playing. When I'm done recording, I stop it, it'll process, I can save it, and then email it to the teacher. Okay, all in one place. Again, the huge drawback of that is the listen to others feature. And so just be mindful of that if you decide to use it in your classroom, that it takes a lot of oversight. All right, so we'll come back to this one. Okay. Now, what's happening with a lot of these is it's requiring a certain level of musical ability on the part of the student, which is probably a concern. So how do you overcome the students who are not capable and gifted? And so there's an app for that. But it has its own drawbacks that we'll talk about as well. Again, there's no perfect app. So auto-rap is one that works well. And so the way this works is it processes sound and it will convert it into a rap, and it kind of does all that auto-tuning stuff. Okay. So problem with it is that it requires either micropayments in the subscription, and again, this is one I would not put on my students' iPad that they had, but is one I would just hand them my iPad. And the nice thing about it is that it's one that you can hand it to them, they read their rap, it's done. It doesn't require practice and doing it over and over again and getting it perfect, because the app does everything for them. There's like 2 free beats that you can use. And so you just pick the beat that you want. You can talk, or you can choose to try to rap over the beat if you want to use skill. But you can just talk, and so I can just say anything. I can talk about that on the iPad Teaching and Learning Conference 2014 in the lovely Hampton Inn in Raleigh, North Carolina. Stop it, it processes. It'll process it through and just use what I've said, and it will put it on beat. So I can just be totally off beat, and it'll put it on beat. And that's great for students.
Sends out friends for fantasy football. You mean like text it to your friends?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, so you can send it out. There's also, if the students are using it and they have accounts for it, they can also challenge each other. And so they can create a rap, and then they can challenge other students to rap out.
Which one was that again?
That's auto-rap, A-U-T-O-R-A-P. Okay? You can also... Huh?
What was the drawback you said?
The drawback of it is in-app micropayments. So there's 2 free beats. So I just use one, there's another one. You can pay a subscription, but the subscription fee is insane. It's $3 a week, $8 a month, or $40 for a year, which you got I'm not paying that. You probably can tell by now, I'm really, really cheap. I've seen it for free like 1,000 times. I want something that's free, because I do not get reimbursed. But you can earn free plays for the premium plays, but that's the huge drawback, because how you earn the free plays is that you can go into all of the various, so I have 6 plays, because I watch just 6 trailers for other apps. But you can earn free plays by watching videos or commercials. You can earn doing surveys and credit card applications, and that's why I don't want that in front of my students. But every once in a while, if I know I'm going to have 6 groups of students doing this, I'll sit there during my planning period and I'll just have 6 short videos play and I'll just ignore them. And then I have 6 free plays for my kids to use. But I'm very adamant, it's like, you do this right the first time, because I'm not watching another video. That's really advantageous. And then every once in a while I'll check and see, like, there was one up here that was, like for NFL.com. Like if you buy something for $50 from the NFL store, you get like 500 plays free. And I'm like, if I'm already going to buy something for someone for the holidays or something like that, I might as well get the plays out of it. But most times I do not do the surveys and stuff on it because it asks for a lot of personal information, and then your email is going to get flooded. So like if I can just watch a video and they get a play, and then I can use the free stuff in the account.
Have you thought about just emailing the developer?
That's a great question.
I have emailed several developers and said, hey, I'm a teacher, we use this, can I just have one teacher code? And you'd be really surprised, yeah. They're really nice, especially if you put them on your website and you're saying, oh, I use this in the classroom.
No, that's a great recommendation, absolutely. So, but yeah, this is a good one for the students who are shy, because again, you can also hear it masks the voice somewhat too, so they don't, because I can't stand the sound of my own voice recorded back to me. All right, so that's autograph. This one's fun. Beatbox Plus. It's not like overly, it gets the students like they can just stand up in front of the room and perform. So it's just a beat pad, and every beat on here is a synthesized human voice. Okay, I'll turn it up here. Some volume. I don't know what volume is. So this one, you just press, and it's
like a soundboard.
Yeah, but it's all beatbox stuff.
Pretty cool.
And so they can stand at the front of the room, and one student is beatboxing, and the other one is rapping. Okay. What else do I use? GarageBand, another good one, because again they can use their own iTunes catalog with that, and that's a really good one too for disguising voices, because it has so if you go into just the audio recorder on GarageBand, and then you just record it just doing anything, and it'll do the metronomes. You want to turn that off because the metronome's annoying. Okay, and so you just record your audio in the GarageBand, and this is also good if you're doing like a TouchCast or anything like that. You just want to have you talking and then upload that. And then you can change the voice with different options. So it can again mask their voice a little bit, which teenagers prefer. Okay. So those are the major apps that I use. And then, again, for publishing, with all of those, they're able to save and email you directly. But if you want them to post to, if you want to have them make a music video and put it on YouTube with like a private link, if you want to use the stop motion app, and then they can put audio over top like a stop motion video. But stop motion is really, really labor intensive for them to get that done. It requires taking a lot of time and a lot of pictures. And then the thing I really like to do though are the QR codes. And the reader I like is iNigma. It's a really very quick QR reader. And then there's also just QR creator. So they type in a link. So if they've recorded something on Sherbet or Vocaroo, they can just type the link in, create a QR code, and then you can just put the QR up in the classroom, in the hallway if you want, whatever you want to do. The last one I want to show you as far as apps is Educreations, because they can do kind of a music video where they can go onto Google, they can get, like, for history, if they're researching Charlemagne, they can get a bunch of pictures. I would ask for them to give me like a works cited for where they got the pictures. But they get a bunch of pictures, they download them into their camera roll, they go onto Educreations, they can write out title cards, illustrations, they can import the pictures, and then when they get everything set up, they can just hit record on the audio, and they can record the rap right over top of it. The limitation about Educreations, I can't talk. The limitation about Educreations and recording audio is that you can't edit the audio. You can record it and you can delete it, but that's it. And Educreations has even posted that they're working on editing tools, but it's not there yet. And so that's a good one for just like they bring in pictures. And so here's one I created this afternoon about feudalism. Hopefully I can get the speaker more. This is me rapping, and so again, be willing to embarrass yourself.
Aims of economic brutalism. Everyone's hand in someone else's coin first. Paying the lion's share all the way to the dirt first. King William the Conqueror said, here's how it's gonna be. Work your whole life, give me hard-earned money. I'll cop your English lands up to my Norman French bros. Now they'll call the lords, and you've got to go. You can stay and work the lands because you know the turf, but you're now the peasant. Let's call you the serf. If you're a Ghislaine, then you're tied to the land. That means you can't leave, but form your own boot band. The knights control the lands, keeping them safe.
But you get the idea that you can post things, the students can do that. And then again, when you save it, you can export it as a video, email it directly to someone, post it on YouTube, do whatever you want with it. Okay. So those are the main apps I use, that's the main technology, if anyone has any questions.
Have you ever thought about using Puppet Pals and wrapping everything?
Yeah, I have.
And put them in there?
Yes.
I know Franklin invests in Puppet Pals, they use those too a lot.
Yeah, we have the Puppet Pals too, which, the great thing about that is you can, again, if you have a group thing that like you can have where the mouth actually moves while the student's talking. And if you have a group, each one of them gets a puppet and they can all put their hand on the screen and control the puppet, and that creates some good chaos and a nice fun energy. But yeah, I've used Puppet Pals as well, that's a good one. Does anybody else have any other app ideas or recommendations? I'm also like kind of piloting this, so I want to know what else I can use.
Evernote just came out with their little sing over top of John Lennon piece. I don't know if you've ever. It's not Evernote. I'm sorry. It's TouchCast.
Okay.
They're like one of the hot new apps, and that records your video and audio at the same time. So they can make a little music video while they're doing it, which
Any other ideas?
How do you get like a minute with Videolicious?
Yeah. 1 minute and 10 pictures.
10 pictures. I mean, you're doing something short.
Yeah, but I've used that one if they're doing something really quick and to the point. And also the idea of having limitations is good for them. They know I need exactly 10 pictures and this has to be within a minute too. So that structure helps. Does anyone have any questions or comments or concerns?
Is this an elementary thing at all?
Sure. I mean, the auto wrap is great. I do auto wrap with my 5-year-old son all the time. Like today, I have one. I don't have one on there. I just took up. But I'll sit at the kitchen table. I'll hit record and say, "Tell me what you know about dinosaurs." And he just talks about dinosaurs, and then it processes, and he loves to listen to himself back and the things that he said. And so auto wrap is a really, really good one for that. And they don't care about a wide range of beat selection. Like he could hear the same beat over and over and over again, as long as it's his voice, he's happy.
Incorporate like when you're teaching poetry, and then do auto rap, and it works best from your old. That's the one. Then they can just read it because it's not
And even if you're not using the iPad or anything like that as well, you know, there doesn't have to be a beat. There doesn't have to be technology involved. You know, a lot of times I just have a student write something and then I say just read it to us. And you don't have to be dramatic and you don't have to be on rhythm. And there doesn't need to be a beat. Just read us what you've written. Spoken word. You're going to have students who don't like rap. You know, I have students that I don't like rap, I'm not going to have anything to do with it. Can I write a country song? I say, sure. But I mean, and that's fine too. However your students want to express themselves, as long as they're getting the content across, you know, I'm happy. I had a group of girls in 7th grade last year when we were doing the Age of Elizabeth, the Tudor Dynasty. They everything they did, there was 4 of them. They were totally in unison. They choreographed things, and it was great. And but I wouldn't necessarily call it rap, but just putting the idea in front of them gives them the potential to do whatever they want with it. And again, the end product doesn't have to be necessarily what you expected, as long as they're showing comprehension and mastery of the content. That's what I care about. It's just how they get there. All right, I think that's about it.